so that other groups can learn from you. Got it? Okay, let's get started here.
Like now?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So we're the Navajo Nation. I'm going to like a little background here. They're one of the biggest Native American tribes in the U.S., both population and area-wise. But despite that, they are one of the poorest. They migrated into the southwest United States about 1,500 years ago. The current states they migrated into were Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, and Colorado. They were originally hunters and gatherers, but they adopted to farming and sheep herding after contact with the Spanish. A major conflict was in the mid-1800s with our U.S. government. They were forced to relocate. This was known as the Long Walk. This was from 1863 to 1866, and thousands of Navajo marched to the eastern Bosque Redondo. That's in eastern New Mexico. And then after 5 years, they signed a treaty in 1866 and returned to the homeland. Then several decades ago, their reservation was dedicated as a national sacrifice zone. That just means that the federal government extracts fossil resources from them like coal, uranium, oil, and gas, and doesn't compensate them.
Okay, so the issue here is that we have given the land to the Native American tribes.
Nice and louder, please.
Specifically the Navajo community. We keep going onto their land and taking the materials found underground. Where do the land rights end and the mineral rights begin? Navajo Nation is found in New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. As various materials are very important in the economy, including coal, oil, vanadium, and uranium. Coal and oil are fossil fuels. Vanadium is a metal that helps with strength, and uranium is a radioactive element mainly used for energy as well as military purposes. It's found underground, so a couple solutions would be buying the land back. That'd be a solution. It is not technically theirs because it's under the land. We've seen this in other Native American instances. Do you pay the natives to mine it, or do you just force it back and restrain them more so you can't mine it? Simple solution would be leave the materials where they are. The natives own the land, and leave the land as it is. We don't need the materials right now. We are not in an economic crisis. We do not need these materials. It's not what we need to right now. And my theological perspective relates it to Ambrose, because chapter 5, Ambrose, line 17, wherefore Naboth was blessed, even though he was stoned by the rich, weak, and poor, as opposed to the royal resources. He was rich in his aim and his religion, so rich indeed that he would not exchange the inheritance of his vineyard, received from his father for the king's money, and on this account he was perfect. For he defended the rights of his forefathers with his own blood, thus also Ahab was rent for his own showing. For he caused the poor man to be put to death, so as to take possession of the vineyard itself. Also relates to chapter 29, line 150. You also remember how often we entered on a contest against the royal attacks on behalf of the trust money belonging to widows. Yes, so as well. You and I share this in common. I will also mention the late case of the Church of Tiverton, which was in danger of losing the widow's trust money that it had received. For when he who wanted to claim it, on some imperial script demanded it, the clergy did not maintain their rights. For they themselves, having once been called to office, were sent to intervene. Now suppose that they could not oppose the emperor's orders. The plain words of the rescript were read, the orders of the chief officer of the court were there. He who was to act when the matter was at hand, what more was to be said, it was handed over. In the common good, we could just leave it and consider it to the poor, which in this case would be the Navajos. We have to be understanding of the poor, according to Ambrose and others we talked about this class. We forced them into the small trapped areas. They talked about the long walk. Why do we still keep attacking them for certain materials? Many Navajos travel miles every day just to pump water to keep their animals and them alive. Many Navajos are happy living off the land and want to be left alone from the government. Part of understanding them is listening to them. Navajos are big on preservation of leaving the land how it is when they got there. They don't like making corn cornfields or whatever we do here, they just like to leave it as it is. We really truly should leave it as it is and respect their rights. What is under their land is theirs.
To kind of understand the background history of all this, we're gonna kind of take a little bit back in terms of how we get to this economic state, knowing that that Europeans came over to the United States to find land and came in contact with Native Americans, and to kind of get a quick little background on that, we kind of all know what happened. They came over, everything was good. They bonded, both tribes bonded, and then later on, there was a mass genocide, which I kind of think is kind of like the dark side of Thanksgiving is a mass genocide, because they had a feast and then later on they killed everybody, burned their houses down, killed the people, tortured them, doing all the wrong, and then later on, in the 1830s, we have the Indian Removal Act, which forced Native Americans to migrate west, and then they conquered all their land. They conquered all their land, and then they also deemed the Native Americans as worthless and have a weak agriculture. Now, resourcing and now, and now we kind of view this as a resource and exploitation and environmental injustice. To kind of get into the statistics and whatnot, that the Native Americans have a 25.4% are low income. And now, how does that look? In terms of that, they have bad water systems. Their homes have run down electricity. Due to their placement, where they had to migrate to, they have poor funding, in which that caused them to have bad roads, bad transportation issues, as all their resources are low funded, so they have to venture out to other places to basically get what they want for their basic needs. And also their healthcare is also underfunded. Now that also too, because of their poor conditions, they have fewer commercial banks, which also renders them from saving money, investing, and acquiring loans down the road. And to kind of get into the theological perspective of the good, the bad, and ugly. Honestly, I don't think there is any good out of all this. These are people being, being extorted, for their resources. They have their land taken away. They basically have their whole culture stripped. So in my opinion, there's no good. The bad about this is that after all this, there's they do have laws placed by the government to kind of help, bring back. Well, I'm not gonna say bring back, but to kind of help fund the Native Americans, kind of like back to where to where they should be. But unfortunately, they aren't doing that. They aren't keeping up with their promises. And then the ugly thing about this is that I'm gonna say is the historical context of everything. Like I said before, just basically being stripped of their culture, being stripped of their identity, basically taking away their land, torturing them, and killing them. And then from the Ambrose perspective, I do want to talk about the government's duty in all this. I think that the government does have a profound, body duty to basically arise, from all this oppression, from all the historical wrongdoings, the bad relationships that they put. I think that Ambrose focus on fulfilling these obligations, are very applicable here. And as of right now, I think that the United States has failed, to protect minorities, tribes who are endangered. Yeah.
And to tie into what you said, Joe, about the duty of the government, I have like their, we need more beneficence. We got a lot of benevolence. They're talking about helping them out, but not any doing. So we need a whole lot of that. And then if you go to like the Lexi Tay, like paragraphs 8 through 10, I'm not gonna read the whole paragraph out to you, but just talks about the structural poverty there and how this is the definition of structural poverty. They aren't being compensated for the very rich resources on their land, and they're getting no compensation for that, and that's gonna continue to keep them poor because they have no sources of making money other than their farming and whatnot. So I think Navajo just needs to give some grace to the government at that point, and hope that the government can see that their actions are not warranted whatsoever, and then the government can give them the money that they deserve, or not even the money, just access to the resources on their land. Don't tell them what to do with it, just let them have them at that point. Yeah.
Conversation between the three of you? Would you hear from each other that you agree with, disagree with, that took your ideas in a different direction or the same direction, whatever?
Yeah. Personally, though, I like the point, Tatum. What you think that is that that we should give the government grace. Kind of want to like turn my head on that. I just think for so long, not just with the not just with the Native Americans, but I think with all minorities. I just feel like over the years from historical context, is we try to give people so much grace, but how much grace are we going to give those people? To obtain what we want, right? That's kind of like when we visit football just a little bit. Let's say, hey, you're a 4-year senior, right? I worked hard, from my freshman to junior year, right? And coach, even though he's not what I want, even though he's working hard, doing everything that he got to do, but but you're not given the opportunity, to succeed. And then on top of that, right, because he's not viewing you, as one of his better people, he's also taking away your resources, right? He's not giving you as many reps on the field, he's not giving you the proper training like one-on-one, right? We can kind of tie that back into the, to these people right there, they're taking away their resources, they're taking away their land, they're taking away their funding, right? It's like they just, it's like they come in their own home, right? They say, you know what, even though that this is your home, I'm gonna take it all away, I'm gonna take away your funding, we're gonna, we're gonna, basically, we're gonna make it hard for you, to survive on, on your land, even though that you're already here, doing, doing what you are already doing, tithing and all that, we're gonna basically just take it all away and basically have you work for it, and, and we're gonna blame you, for being in the position that you're in, so when we talk about grace, I don't, I just think that how much grace do we have to give?
Can you define that word? Peyton, you used it. What did you mean by grace?
Grace just forgive.
So,
Is that mercy? Mercy? Okay.
Misericordia?
Yeah.
Is that what you meant?
Yes.
So, is that how, Joseph, is that how you were using the word, as forgiveness?
In a way, yes.
How were you using it then?
Like with me, okay, so when he brought up the word grace, right? So I'm thinking it's more of like kind of being, patient with them, it's it's okay, they're gonna come around, when they come around, that's kind of how I view the word grace. Now, if we're talking about giving them mercy, I kind of still have the same, I still have the same viewpoint,
Yeah, it doesn't change.
I just it doesn't change because, yeah, just, you know what I'm saying, just like I said, as being oppressed by the oppressor, it's like how much torture, how much, what I'm saying, like how much like wrongdoing does a minority have to take,
Yeah.
in order to, be viewed as equal,
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's the same viewpoint.
Yeah, because it's like to an extent, like you can give them anything on this chart that they need, but until they actually take action for themselves, nothing's gonna happen.
Here's what I need more theology from you. What are your theological resources? You quoted Ambrose, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And what is it that you specifically that you get from Ambrose?
Well, I took the passages from Ambrose.
Yeah, but what's in those passages that you wanted? What do the concepts say?
How did we read like the key sentence?
Pardon
And
me?
then go off of that?
Pardon me?
How like we read the key sentence and go off of that?
Sure, if that is the way you want to do it, yeah.
So chapter 5, line 17, received from his father for his king's money, on this account he was perfect. And he defended the right to his forefathers with his own blood. I think this relates to the natives because they quite literally are handed their land down from their forefathers, and they have fought and taken down people, trying to protect their land and their rights for their land. And then the other one said, in chapter 29, line 150,
What is it again?
chapter 29, line 150.
Of what?
Ambrose.
Yeah, what of?
42.
Huh?
42.
On the clergy?
Yeah.
That one, okay.
For when he who wanted to claim it on some imperial or script demanded it, the clergy did not maintain their rights. I think the maintain their rights part was big in this sentence because we've made many treaties with the Native Americans, and every time we find conflict to go against it, we just completely wipe the treaty out and we just forget about it and go do what we want. We force them into a small area.
So what I'm trying to get you to do is the gap, the space between the source and the solution or the response. The gap in between is what are the concepts? Like you use the concept of the common good. You use grace, but you meant misericordia, right?
Yes.
Did you use the word? You didn't use the word common good, but that's what you were talking about.
Yeah.
I think.
And then structural poverty as well.
Yeah.
That's in
You use beneficence.
Yes.
All right, are there any other theological concepts that are crucial to supporting why you think X or Y or Z need to be done?
Honestly, I don't think so.
Do you all three agree on what needs to be
myself.
done?
This is a duty.
Yes.
That's what it's a duty. It has to be done.
So you would,
Yes, I
Yes,
think it has to be
it's
done. In order, I feel like in order to achieve the common good, or to at least, help the Navajo tribe to even have like a stepping stool, we need the government, to, fulfill this duty.
what's the goal, what is the outcome that that you would see, that you would say justice has been done if what?
I'm a very realistic person. Honestly, I don't think that every group will be viewed as equal or anything like that. However, I do think, okay, now if we give, this group, the proper resources, right? If we give them funding, if we allow them to have, their land back, I also think, if they provided, better healthcare systems for them, I feel like if they, be a better healthcare system, I feel like if they, provided, better schooling for them, I think that, that'll at least help out, in some way. I think that because they've done all this damage to them, I don't think that, I don't think that, well, anytime soon, I don't think that, that the Navajo tribe will, be back to where the youth, were, or, be as better, than people oppressing them. So, I just think funding, better resources, better, transportation, schools, all the above, we water, electricity, yeah, just all that, for them to succeed, in this world.
I gotta cut you off because we have another group to do, but a couple points. Hone in on the theological concepts. I like the fact that you're using the sources, that's excellent. Now, focus in on the key concepts, and if you're gonna use justice, then I wanna know why you're not using the other three cardinal virtues. I understand that you wanna use beneficence, because benevolence just means talking about it, not doing it. But Ambrose would say in that quote that you, that came from, he would say that of the two, benevolence is probably the more important. So you need to engage that. And, things like, what percentage of the US population is Native American, do you know? Yeah, that's an important detail. What percentage of Native Americans live on reservations? And what percentage of Native Americans live in poverty? I think you might have had that.
25.4%.
25.4?
Yeah.
Okay, that seems low to me, but, and then of course the Navajo in particular, the data for them will be different than Native Americans in general. And, but you called it the Long Walk?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the Trail of Tears?
Oh, it's different.
They are different, but, yeah, I was thinking that you were confusing the Navajo with the Cherokee. The Navajo live on their native land, right?
Yeah.
But you're saying they were taken off?
Yeah, they were forced off.
Where did they were first to?
Somewhere. Bosque Redondo.
I have no idea where that is.
It's in New
Okay.
Mexico.
Okay, we gotta shut you down.
Eastern New Mexico.
Huh?
Eastern New Mexico.
Okay, and where are they now?
They're back to where they were initially, and those are four states: Arizona, Colorado, Utah.
And not New Mexico?
And New Mexico. They're still in New
Okay.
Mexico.
Okay, all right, scooch out. Who's up? You okay?
I did all this last night, I ain't gonna lie.
Clean up.
Oh, this
I got it.
fuck it.
Are you okay bumping now?
Yeah.
It's just, I hear better when I'm far away from that. Who was your third? There you are. We'll talk after class, okay? All right, go ahead. Let's start with introducing, what is your topic? Just tell us it.
Our topic is how, like, the economic impacts of the government shutdown on low-income families in the United States.
On who?
Low-income families. So for the background of that, in the fiscal year 2024, 41.7 million people relied on SNAP benefits, which is 1 in 8 people in America, and 6 million households had their energy bills paid by low-income home energy assistance programs. These were both put on hold during the shutdown, so like for the energy assistance, typically the state allocated money is given in early November, but because there was 43 days where no one was working on that, that's been pushed back to either late December or early January, which means as temperatures are dropping, like there's gonna be people that can't afford to pay for their energy bills or anything like that. And then just like background on what SNAP is in general, it's like meal supplement plans, I guess. So basically it's a credit card, essentially with credits on it that help you buy basic nutrition and formula and stuff for all of your families.
So a government shutdown happens when Congress and the president don't agree on a new budget by a certain deadline. Obviously because of this, they can't pass it, and then these budgets that they're talking about fund the agencies that like SNAP, the housing benefits, the energy, they fund that, so obviously those don't go out during that time. Also federal employees are put on hold, or their payment is put on hold, so some of them still have to work, without being paid, but they do get like paid eventually, just when the government starts working again. There is a list of government programs like Social Security and Medicaid or Medicare, and those still continue during the government shutdown. However, housing programs, if the government shutdown goes past the end of a calendar year, then they won't reissue the housing vouchers. So people could lose their houses, but our main focus is kind of on the SNAP benefits. So SNAP benefits is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Like Riley said, it contributes to 42 million Americans buying food each month. And a large percent of those people, 70%, are elderly, disabled, or children. So it's reaching a very vulnerable part of the population who, besides these SNAP benefits, probably can't get what they really need. And a lot of people see, or I guess the stats show that as the economy worsens, SNAP enrollment increases. And the SNAP is funded by the Department of Agriculture, and they have a contingency fund for emergencies like this. But the Trump administration didn't want to tap into that contingency fund during the shutdown. So nearly half the country sued the federal government. On October 31st, 2 federal judges ruled that the administration had to provide SNAP benefits during the shutdown. The administration agreed to partial payments, but then a week later, another judge said that November should be paid in full. And then due to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, people on benefits have to meet stricter work requirements. So there's a 3-month countdown that will start for people to either comply or they just lose the benefits completely.
The global economy already disadvantages the poor. As Annette pointed out, even though $128 trillion is circulated globally, the distribution of it is extremely uneven, with most of it going to the already wealthy people in countries. And they cut off the little support the poor families have, which only made the distribution of the SNAP benefits worse. And along with those are the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, which helps people pay their energy bills, the housing assistance, or even like the public health services are too much for low-income families to handle. And those without a financial safety net are most affected by the government shutdown. Along with this, the shutdown ignored the preferential option for the poor. So this is where like the needs for the least fortunate should be prioritized, but the shutdown ignored that. Annette warns that the political decisions that overlook vulnerable people make the injustice worse.
My theological perspective was the shutdown caused like a large moral dilemma because I think it was Ambrose that mentioned saving life is more important than any material possessions. So as Christians, we're called to act in service of common good and like pursue justice, which is like everyone getting what they are entitled to receive. So all of these benefits are stuff that they are entitled to receive because it's helping them live like a comfortable life. And the shutdown most affected the vulnerable population who have like a lack of voice and lack of power to stand up against like corrupt actions like this. So we just like we practice benevolence and make a commitment to fight with them and for them, and then actually act on what we say we're going to do. As Pope Leo mentioned in the Luxite, when poor people suffer, God suffers alongside them. So it's just like our duty to help them and fight for them and face their issues, which kind of, I also tied in misericordia of forgiving the people for forgiving the government for stopping and then like providing them with grace and acceptance of they made a mistake, learn from it, fix it, and then they won't be repeated again.
Throughout this project, I honestly thought a lot about the Luxite writing and how it talks about poor people a lot. in paragraphs 19 through 23, it's basically talking about how Jesus was born for the poor. I also was talking about misericordia as well, and but on a different level, I was thinking of giving the poor people grace. They're doing what they can because under the government benefits, like there's certain work rules, so sometimes you can't work or you have to work a certain amount of hours, but then so these people have to pay for childcare, and then they can't pay for childcare because they don't have the money, and it's honestly like I think they just need to be seen for more than what they are.
My theological perspective on the shutdown is shaped by the idea that faith isn't just beliefs, it's a way of seeing people. One of the things that Thomas Aquinas talked about is synderesis, and that is that everyone is born with the ability to know good and bad. For me, that means that we can't just look at the shutdown as politics. Our conscience should immediately recognize that letting families go without heat, food, and stability is simply wrong. Synderesis keeps us from pretending that suffering is just how the system works. It tells us that a system causing this much harm needs to be challenged and changed. From that, it led me to duty, but that government leaders have a duty to the common good, which Aquinas says is the whole reason they hold the authority in the first place. And as people of faith, we also have a duty to speak out when decisions hurt those who already live on the edge. When the low-income families, the people without the safety nets, are the first step to feel the pain of a shutdown, that's a sign that the duty isn't being honored.
Going off the synderesis thing, like these people don't want to live in poverty. They don't want to have to depend on the government. But again, it is just so hard from going to depend on the government and then having a job that pays enough. Like, there's just a gap there, and it needs to be filled somehow.
And like going off of what you said, Noah, I really like what you said about giving grace to the poor people, because like they're put in a situation for things they can't control. Like a lot of them are elderly or disabled, or like just can't afford childcare, so can't work enough hours to like provide a stable living. So I think giving grace to these people is probably more important than giving grace to the government.
I would agree with that. I didn't really add grace too much to my theological perspective because it was just something that I feel like to me is just assumed. But I do agree, like grace to me also, like it means like misericordia, but it also means like being like lenient and forgiving. And I feel like it's more important to, like in my head, but it's more important to like protect those who don't have that financial safety net, they don't have anything to fall back on. Protect their rights too, than it is to just allow anyone and everyone to do whatever they want.
Let's see here. What is the structural problem that is behind the topic that you chose?
Go ahead.
Like from what I understand that you're asking, I would say that it's just the economy that was set up before the government, because it allowed for those who were least fortunate to be just immediately pushed under the rug and forgotten about.
Okay, Molly, what do you got?
I would also say that the people making these decisions about these government assistances ending or less people being on them have never had to worry about being in those positions, so I feel they don't really care.
Yeah, when you specifically, you chose a very specific topic. I mean, this is a historical incident, but it is evocative of a much larger problem, isn't it? So why do you think the president decided not to extend the emergency funds when he had the authority to do so, that would have helped people get through the shutdown?
Honestly, the only reason I could think of is that, like, in the case that there is like a natural disaster, they could have those funds. Maybe they didn't wanna have less money, but, I read that, there was over $8 million that could have been sent out.
And then along with that, I feel like, to me, what comes to mind is like maybe he just doesn't realize how big of a problem it is, or he feels like, I mean, this would be kind of like going off of like a conspiracy, but he feels like he wants people to rely on him and the government rather than just allowing them to get what they need.
Of course, if he wanted that, the guy's famous for taking credit for things, he could have done it and taken credit for it.
Yeah, but I feel like it would have allowed, like it could have allowed them to have more freedom rather than relying on the SNAP benefits,
You think that's what he wanted, was for them to be free? Is that what you're saying?
no, I'm saying the opposite.
Okay,
He likes the fact that,
right.
or
Okay.
like the government in general likes the fact that they rely on those.
Do you have a take on this?
I mean, I think it's mostly, I would say about 1/3 of Americans rely on some form of government assistance program, but it's possible that obviously he doesn't, so it's very possible he just didn't realize how much affects like 43 days without all of these benefits and how like the actual negative effects that has on people.
And we're all speculating here, but if he's involved with in a political tug of war, and he has the power to force the other side's hand by making people miserable, he might see that I need to do that to force them to yield. In other words, using SNAP benefits as a political tool to force the other side to cave in. Let's pretend that that was his motivation, because that seems to me to be a legitimate political way of thinking, as long as you don't consider what the impact that has on real life people. But if it did, politics is a very, very ugly game, and this is an example of people being the victims of political gamesmanship, for sure. But, so what would you make of that argument, that he had to do it in order to get the other side to buckle?
I mean, I wouldn't really put it past him, but
No, I'm not saying whether you think he did it or not, I'm thinking, what do you think of that morally?
it's pretty wrong. There's,
Why? What makes it wrong?
like, using actual human lives as, like, for your own personal gain is.
Well,
just
remember, it's not his
very-
personal gain, it's his side's, his
His
party's gain.
agenda's
Yeah,
gain is very, not for the common good. It's
not for the
very-
common good.
I know when we first started talking about common good, we like said like if there's an us and a them, then there is no common good. I feel like that's very like my side versus your side, so it's farther away from the point.
Both of your groups, I would ask you to, because you use the word common good, which is great, not saying anything bad about my 8 o'clock class, but it didn't even come up at 8 o'clock, that hurt my feelings.
Oh my gosh.
But I wanna know what you mean by it, so unpack that for me in your written version. And let's see, also, you used grace again, where are you guys getting this? We did not emphasize this word as much as you guys are using it. Did you use grace to mean misericordia?
I mean I have grace in the book somewhere, but maybe I guess just talking about.
Maybe, are you getting it from the Pope?
I thought we talked about.
We-
It's the top right corner we talked about.
It's the top right corner,
Yeah,
yeah,
we
but
talked
you're
about it.
using it,
Talked
you are
about
using it in
Talked
the,
about it too.
what'd you say?
You talked about it too.
Of course I talked about it, It's-
I heard you.
but,
I was on my phone over there.
look, it's, am I right that you used Grace and you met Misericordia, is that true?
Yes.
So why did you do that? What made you substitute those words? I mean, is it just,
I felt like we didn't want to use the entire chart. I just felt like we wanted to see it focus on that word grace, you know?
why the Northwest corner?
Misericordia is like something like unachievable.
It's unachievable?
I agree. It's
I feel like for me, I've heard grace my whole life, I've talked about it,
So that,
but it's a lot, so for me, it's a lot easier to define grace, to me.
all right, good. Define it for me then, will you?
It's the lenience, it's being forgiving and lenient.
Uh-huh. Okay. All right.
But to me, like misericordia is something that I just learned and I'm still learning how I define it.
Right,
So-
yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's see here, we have a few minutes, so, you used Thomas Aquinas, you used Ambrose, you used, Leo the, let's see, the 14th?
The Lexi-Tech, that's what we call it. The Lexi-Tech.
And you talked about, I mean, you chose a very specific issue. By the way, just to follow up on that, are things back to where they were?
What do you mean by that?
Are people getting their SNAP checks and their vouchers, and are they able to make their house payments and that sort of thing?
I believe the SNAP benefits are back. I know the low-income home energy assistance program is still waiting for it's like the federal government divides up the budget how much each state gets. So that hasn't happened yet just because it takes so long and they weren't working on it. So that one won't get given out until late December or January. But I think the rest of it is slowly rolling back to how it's supposed to be. So it's getting there, but it's not there yet.
Use justice, a reverse argument would be that it's unjust to expect me and my tax dollars to support people who are unemployed.
But I feel like when you say something like that, it kind of sounds like an us versus them type of thing.
It sounds like an us versus them, is what you said? When you say that no one wants to be dependent on the government, if you had said the opposite, that people are poor because they want to be dependent on the government, I would say avoid sweeping generalizations and look specifically at the data and what the information is telling us. So if I have to use the same argument with you, nobody wants to be dependent on the government. What did you learn from studying this that led you to that conclusion?
I guess I don't really know, I guess it's just an assumption.
Pardon me?
I guess it's just like a personal assumption.
Yeah, and it's powerful as a statement, but it is also, it's a sort of statement that is as likely to make somebody say, now hold on there. I actually think the exact opposite. And now we're two people sitting in the bar arguing with each other and our voices getting louder without either one of us having any idea what we're actually really talking about. So if we would need to know, what would be the proof test that nobody wants to be dependent on the government?
I would say it's, people who are actively working towards not being dependent on the government.
So if the government is providing the resources, for example, healthcare and childcare and insurance subsidies, so that people can actually afford to go to work, get that?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? You have to be able to afford to go to work.
Right.
And the argument, the case study would be, when these are provided, the number of people in poverty actually goes down. Because people are using those opportunities to dig themselves out. And when the opposite happens, when the SNAP benefits, people lose employment, people lose their mortgages, people lose their health care, and people lose their cars. And therefore they lose their jobs. So that would be the sort of statistical data point that would substantiate that broader generalization. Or, conceivably, prove it wrong. Does poverty go down when people have more opportunities? Or is poverty just, what does Jesus said, the poor you will always have with you? Right, so that's the thing that you might want to think about. But use direct quotes in the paper version of this that you turn in, and both of you make sure that your terms are defined. You can use grace if you want, just so it's defined, so that I know what you mean by it, because it is one of those words that kind of means whatever you want it to mean.
Yeah, so when I was talking to Misericordia, I didn't realize it was what binds it. I thought it was like the center point, like.
Misericordia is in the center.
Yeah, I know, like,
Yeah.
perfection,
Oh,
not like.
Okay. All right. You set a high bar, both of you.
We did?
No, yes, I do want some, I do.
This, I don't think